want to start out. We're pushing through, right? So I want to start out this episode before I get into announcing you guys to talk about our Starbright program. And the funny thing is I left the bucket on the other table. So wow, I was like all amped up to talk about the Starbright thing, and I didn't even put the table or the bucket on the. All right, so we have our bucket here. Okay, and this is our Starbright bucket, and we have a winner this week. Okay, so for those of you who are just hearing about this for the first time, we are working with Starbright. We have collaborated with our good friends Derek and Corey Redwine and Starbright to do a promotional campaign called #DoGooder, which is we're looking for the do-gooders in our local areas who are just responsible, doing just everyday, regular, normal, responsible things, and maybe some things that are a little bit above and beyond for coastal cleanup and restoration, and just being good stewards of, our coastal environment. So what we've been saying is, the message that we've been saying is Corey Redwine up in the Indian River Lagoon, Merritt Island area, is the conservation director at Starbright. She is a advocate for pushing people to do gooder and clean up their coastal areas, and she is a mangrove harvester along with her husband and my good friend Derek Redwine, fellow artists, both of them. One of the cool things about Corey is she finds this found art or this trash along the beaches and the estuary and coastlines, and she makes art pieces out of them. Like, she'll make these big mahi pieces, and she made a nice Starbright logo, and she does cool stuff. But that artwork brings awareness to her mission, and her mission is to keep the water clean and keep the coastlines clean. Starbright has gone on board with her on this, and she's gone on board with her to create a program. And we've announced this on the show a few times. If you know someone in your area that you want to nominate, you can go on Instagram and just message @CRedwine or tag them in a post @Starbright_com, @ConnectedByWater, or @DennisFriel Art. And I say or because you don't have to tag all. You can just tag one. As long as your message gets through to any one of us, you'll be registered to get nominated. So this is the week where we pick our first winner. So I spoke to Corey earlier today, and our first winner is Alex Gorichki, right, of Local Lines Charters, and he was born and raised on Merritt Island, and he is an absolute 100% steward of his local community, and it's about time he's being recognized for his selfless efforts. So please. Right?
Congratulations, Alex.
To Alex. You are the winner of the Starbright bucket that has all the good products like the salt off and the degreaser,
the reggae brush,
the reggae sponge, and the boat wash. And it's over $200 worth of stuff in this bucket. And congratulations to Alex. He is the first winner of our program.
Way to go, Alex.
We're very proud of you.
Absolutely. And that's good stuff, too. That stuff isn't cheap. And, I'll tell you, especially these days, but Starbright has always been such a great steward of the environment, big CCA supporters, just a wonderful company, wonderful staff. And they support great people and they support great things. So, I mean, this is not a shocker that Starbright is behind something like this. So,
not a shocker at all.
Credit to Starbright as well.
And they're always in full support of the CCA.
Absolutely. I only use Starbright products on my boat because, first of all, the products are that good, and secondly, they're just that good of a company.
Yeah.
So, how could you not support them?
Absolutely, 100%. So, segueing right over to you. Welcome both of you to the Connected by Water podcast, powered by Joey Cardi, Chrysler Dodge, Jeep Ram, and fueled by our good friends at Papa's PLR Rum. Remind you to never be a spectator, and neither one of you guys can be called spectators because you both take action in your local communities. Mike, you've been on the show. This, I think, is your fourth appearance on the show. something like that, right?
Every time more and more, I wonder why I keep getting invited back. But I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thankful to be here. I'm humbled to be here. And I guess I'll just not tell you that you're making a mistake, but it's okay. I'm glad I'm here.
All right, cool. Awesome. All right, a little closer. So I remember we brought you on by yourself, then we brought you on with Clean Waterways, then we brought you on with Brian Sanders, now we're bringing you on again here with Lorelei, okay? Mike, just a little background on you. I was watching our first episode a little bit to kind of like give me a refresher, and I remember, I'm going to speak like, I'm going to paraphrase here.
Yeah.
I remember calling you like, the future of clean water, it's a bright future, and we're all in good shape with you here. So, and you're proving it, okay? You're entrepreneurial for sure, no doubt about it. Your involvement with the CCA is on great record, and I go back to the Broward banquet that we just had, and I remember I was really, really taken back by the fact that you came in here the afternoon before that banquet, and you're just like, man, we got to do more. We got to do more. You know what I mean? What can we do to do more? And you were picking my brain, and I just loved your passion about it, and I loved how much you cared about the involvement of the community and how to. The CCA was really the goal of this conversation, and you're saying the CCA is just one organization. We're just one chapter, and it really takes the people within the chapter to push forward and make things happen. We wanted to hear from the people, right? And we were saying, we're giving a list of things that the CCA is already doing, because people are like, oh, what's Broward doing as a chapter? And it's like, well, we're telling you what we're doing, right? And I want you to kind of get into that in a little bit. But you were also involved with Clean Waterways, which that's a company that does wonderful things for our intercoastal waterways and things like sewage outbreaks and just cleaning up the water from a filtration standpoint. And I want you to get into that as well, because I know you distanced yourself from the company. You left that company now because of the other thing that we're going to talk about, is the fact that you're running for a commission seat in Fort Lauderdale, which, when you called me or texted me, I can't remember, when you first told me that, I wasn't surprised at all. I was like, yeah, of course you are. Because, and I was extremely excited about that, because we need a guy like you. We need your young energy, and we need your intelligence, and we need your heart, quite frankly, in that position. And I think that's the part, to me, that's going to be the most impressive. That's what people are going to start seeing that maybe haven't met you or don't know you yet. And I think they're going to be impressed by that. So the involvement with the CCA, right, flows over to this one here, right? So I am with also Lorelei Bennett. Okay? And Lorelei is, first and foremost, a good friend, but she's also my personal assistant. Okay? And I'm going to just read off here some of her accomplishments, just so you know. She's 17 years old. All right? And she's a high school student. She's about to be a senior. It's summertime. She's a National Merit Scholar. She's the member of the National Honor Society. She was her junior class president. She has a 5.0 GPA. She's a student athlete, swimmer, who competed at states this year. And she's a water polo athlete. Okay? She's a junior lifeguard camp counselor. Her swimming team was selected to train for a week at the United States Olympic training facility, right? And that was in Colorado Springs?
Yep, Colorado Springs.
All right. And she's an accomplished lady angler, right? Who has many tournament achievements under her belt here locally in South Florida. You are a surfer. You're an advocate for clean water and conservation, and an example for all of South Florida youth to follow, quite frankly. And most recently, you are the recipient of the top award in the inaugural CCA Youth Scholarship. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the show.
I got a question real quick, not to interrupt, but is there anything that she's not? I mean, is there anything that she's not?
I don't even think I have all of it there. That's just the highlights.
You have a whole paper right there. I mean,
she does so much more.
The other thing I was going to say is, as the astute scholar
Mm-hmm.
and immaculate brain that she is, I can't believe she didn't say anything about do-gooder.
Well, that's the whole joke, right? So there's a joke behind that that I still haven't gotten the whole full story
It's okay.
on.
I was biting my
But
tongue.
if you're a do-gooder, I guess
spooled her up
that's
for
how they
that, so-
justify using hashtag do-gooder, right? But I think Corey was speaking at a turn one time, and she kind of just flipped over her mouth. It was, you're going to have these people do-gooder. And then, but if you're a do-gooder, I guess it makes sense. So they kept it hashtag
It's so
do-gooder.
bad, it's good.
So bad, it's good.
Yeah, no, I
It's
like
like
it.
more
Right.
funner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring you both on. The reason I wanted to bring you both on together is because you both, to me, represent both as Florida natives, both as people that have grown where you're planted and making our town, our place, our biosphere a better place to be and live, represent the future of conservation, the future of clean water. So I'm very happy to have you on here both together. So Lorelei, if you will, take me through a little bit of what happened at the CCA Scholarship Week.
So to even get into the scholarship, we had to do an application process. And then there were 10 students selected. From there, we all met in Orlando, which is where Mudhole Tackle is, which was one of our big sponsors for the scholarship program.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout this week, us 10 students, we visited the Duke Mariculture Center, which is where CCA is basically, they're raising, I wouldn't say farming, that's not the correct term. They're raising redfish and sea trout. Specifically, they're working on East Coast redfish at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We got to see like their first steps and how they are making a difference in our waterways, not just in like making clean waterways, just actually impacting the structure of the waterway as a whole. And throughout this week, we had CCA events. We met some of the executives of CCA. We got the Mariculture Center. We got to actually see the Crystal River. We paddled through New Smyrna Beach and saw the Indian River Lagoon, which they're working with right now.
Nice.
We went barramundi fishing, which I thought was amazing. Barramundi are basically like Australian snook.
Yeah, I was looking, the funny thing is when you told me you guys were barramundi fishing, and obviously I've heard of barramundi, but I was like, have I really, really looked into this fish like that deeply? And I started searching around, and it was like, I guess the equivalent of like Asian sea bass, right, from Australia. And I saw that barramundi is actually an Aboriginal word.
They look like a bass and a snook had a baby. It's really weird, and they fight like a sailfish. Like they build ants. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
they're tail walking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yep. You just fight them on light tackle and tail walk them across. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was really interesting. I had a blast doing that.
So how was it? I mean, because I know, listen, there's a difference between Broward, South Florida, Miami, and the rest of the state when it comes to the CCA, and when it comes to the different ways things are viewed, but also the different types of fishing. So we don't really do a lot of red fishing unless we go down to Flamingo or in the backcountry, right here. So you got to experience that up there, right?
Yes. So I actually caught my first redfish. It was at a stocked pond, so it doesn't really count, but I'll count it in my books.
When you say stocked pond, like how big is this pond?
They're acre ponds.
Okay.
Shooting fish in a barrel.
So. Okay. All right, cool.
Those redfish accounts. But so I had the offshore experience, and I was one of the only students there with lots of offshore experience. We had a few inshore, and at first they were just talking about a lot their like West Coast restoration and all of the redfish and sea trout they've released on that side to help the populations in a healthy way. I was a little hurt. I was like, well, what about us East Coast over here? But they're actually working. We saw the first crop of the East Coast redfish that they'll be releasing soon. And I thought it was very interesting because although those redfish aren't going to swim down to Pompano and be like, hey, those redfish are going to affect.
Well, they know Art Sapp lives here, so.
Oh yeah, they stay away. They know it's too legendary here. But those fish are going to help the Indian River Lagoon, which of course that all ends up down here, and we all will feel the effects down here. It might take a little while, but it's a start. It's a start in the right direction.
Yeah, excellent. So I think you got a really good experience when you went there.
Oh, absolutely.
You started learning about a lot of different things. And I remember you even saying now, we talk a lot about, okay, because you're starting to prep for college, and you and I talk a lot about, hey, what do you want to do for this, or what field are you interested in here? And you came back telling me that environmental engineering was something that really piqued your interest on this.
Oh, absolutely.
Why? What influences? What things happened to really raise that?
So while we were at the Mariculture Center, we got to meet with, there's really only 3 employees there. We got to meet with the head running all of this production. And he was, my biggest interest was how he was talking about the East Coast fish versus the West Coast fish. Basically, like, there's a line in Miami that separates the West Coast from East Coast redfish. Just talking about like the genetic diversity and how they've like grown apart from each other, which is really interesting to me. I actually took one of my classes this past year was AP Environmental Science, which I mean, it makes total sense. It's like, if we do this to the environment, this is going to be the impact. And I mean, of course, it's any engineering is a growing field, but specifically environmental engineering, it's a positive growing field. I mean, you're not gonna run out of things to help the environment.
Sure.
I mean, we are going in more negative ways than positive, so that could be a possible help.
Yeah, excellent. Now, Mike, I want to talk about your campaign, quite frankly, because, I asked you before we started, like, are you running on a clean water bill? But obviously there's more to holding an office seat than that. And we discussed that I wrote down some notes here: public safety, traffic, infrastructure, and clean water. So go into some of that if you can.
So as we all know, South Florida has developed, especially Fort Lauderdale and the bigger areas, bigger cities, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, West Palm, have developed in leaps and bounds over the last several decades. And so specifically as it relates to Fort Lauderdale, and I would say also with, the rest of South Florida, COVID really accelerated that growth. And when it comes to Fort Lauderdale, we've had problems in the past and currently in the present with infrastructure failing. I mean, whether it be water pipes, whether it be sewer pipes, whether it be, even our water plant. We bathe in yellow water, and I'm not exaggerating. And so the current city commission was really dealt a very challenging hand because these problems had accumulated over decades. And I give them credit on a number of fronts because they had fast-tracked some of the infrastructure items, like a large force main that they put from Coral Ridge down to the sewer plant, or the wastewater plant. And, they finally got the water plant done. That deal took longer than we wanted it to take, but that's on its way as well. And, during that time, and like I said, over the last 20, 30 years, we've developed so much. So we've got a lot of catching up on this infrastructure to do. During that time, we've also basically torn out mangroves and replaced them with seawalls. And what's unfortunate about it is we never really, in my opinion, made any concerted effort to replace what we took out or replace mangroves, put mangroves maybe in parts of along a seawall. And part of that is due to state regulation. You can't trim red mangroves. And, but these are roadblocks that can all be worked through if you persist to work through them and perhaps get those, get that legislation changed. That's not set in stone. It's not set in stone forever. So, we obviously have huge problems with traffic as a quickly, rapidly growing city. We are constantly having issues with getting stuck at bridges, getting stuck at trains, getting stuck, just getting stuck at the traffic lights that aren't sequenced, I'm
coming from Coral Springs every day, so I'm feeling it every day.
So here's the thing. I mean, we're paying, and we voted on paying for a 1 penny sales tax increase. Mm-hmm. That money, some of that money should go toward traffic infrastructure, synchronizing our lights. I mean, this is like low-hanging fruit that we really need to go after with the county.
That is a big problem. I'm noticing, I'm like, why is this thing turning red?
And that should be, that's something that we need to work with the county on, is getting these things, these are, like I said, these should be pretty easy things to get working on. And so, when we look at public safety, it's like, I'd like to have kids someday. A lot of my friends have kids, and I want people to feel safe when they leave their home in the morning to take their kids to school, put their kids in their cars. I want people to feel safe when they go to the gas station and not ever have to think about looking over their shoulder. I want people to have acceptable response times from police and fire. And so there's a number of different instances I've heard from talking to people in the community that these things may not be quite up to snuff. And so these are, as far as traffic, as far as public safety, those are some of the things I want to work on. We touched on infrastructure. I'd like to fast track more work on our sewer pipes.
I was going to bring up sewer.
Yeah. I mean, and we still have a lot of work to do. I'd like to see if we can fast track that. And if it's a budget thing, we need to reallocate. We need to look at this budget. And so, as you know, I'm a fiduciary for a living. I'm a financial advisor.
Right.
So I bring finance experience to the table when it comes to looking at budgets, when it comes to making fiscally responsible decisions. Currently, there's really nobody that's on that commission, or even anybody running necessarily, that has the financial background that I have. So I think the city will find a lot of value in that. The city will benefit from that in leaps and bounds, and having somebody, like I said, with that can really make interests and make decisions in the best interests of the city. And that's what I do for a living, is make financial decisions in the best interests of my clients. So when it comes to the infrastructure and the roadways, I think there's a lot of things that we can do to make smarter financial decisions when we're trying to accomplish goals. Instead of building up an intersection that would have 2 inches of concrete to try to slow people down, we could do lighted signs. We could do signs that tell you your speed. Instead of spending $250,000 on something like that, we could spend $30,000 and try to accomplish a task. The same result with spending a lot less money and not being subjected to just picking what we feel like would be a solution that works, but maybe not the most fiscally responsible one. And a lot of that has to do with unneeded bureaucracy as well. So I want to really dial that down and eliminate a lot of that. And then it all ties back to the waterways.
Everything ties back to the waterways.
And especially in Fort Lauderdale, though, because Fort Lauderdale.
Well, that's what I meant. Like everything here ties back to the waterways.
And even in cities like Pompano, Lighthouse Point, all these coastal communities
that are connected by water.
They're all connected by water.
Right.
You were in that sip. They're all connected by water, but specifically in Fort Lauderdale, we're called the Venice of America. And we have the most robust yachting and marine industry economically in South Florida. Our city was born and became successful through our waterways. So we need to make the reinvestment back into our community. We need to make the reinvestment back into our waterways, back in the infrastructure, so we can eliminate as much as possible dumping, harmful, hazardous dumping into our waterways. We've got to take care of what made Fort Lauderdale great and why people come here and move here from all over the world. And if we don't take care of that, we're going to lose this wonderful city that we've come to know and love.
I agree 100%. One of the reasons why I love that you're doing this is, I mentioned your heart and your passion earlier, right? But heart and passion is all great. And if I look at this as a business owner, that, I can have all the great ideas in the world that I want, right? But if at the end of the day our books aren't balanced, we just simply don't have a business.
Yeah.
And that's really just the honest truth of it, right? That's one of the reasons that I'm so excited about you, taking the lead and doing this, is because I know it just goes beyond you coming in here before the CCA meeting. We got to do more. It's great to say that, you know what I mean? But you are someone that actually makes these things happen. It comes down to action. I mean, we can say anything we want to say. Lorelei could have said, well, I want to do this youth scholarship thing, but then she realizes, this is a lot of work. You know what I mean? I wanted to, though. It's a big, you can talk about all the things you want to do, but unless you actually get your hands dirty and do them, right,
it's just a whole nother dynamic. So, when you talk about action between the reef program that we have going on, which we're deploying another phase of that next week for the John Michael Baker Reef off Fort Lauderdale, the oyster project that we did studies for 86 different sites around Fort Lauderdale.
Don't think that I actually introduced you as the Broward CCA president chapter, I take that for granted because you've been on the show so many times, but for the people that are just seeing you for the first time on the show, I think it's important to mention that now, since you're talking about that right now, that you are the Broward president chapter for the CCA and the vice president for all of CCA Florida. So, all right, go ahead.
No worries. And so the action is really, like I said, what's really important. Like I said, we did the oyster study. We learned a lot about kind of the environment that they can thrive in, what areas of Fort Lauderdale they're doing well in, what areas they're not, and it kind of, as far as what I learned with science is like, once you kind of close one door, another one opens. You close that door, then another one opens. So it's like, once you learn something about something, you have another set of data that you can study, and so on and so on. So it's like almost like a never ending tunnel,
right,
where you can just get so into the weeds with studying and learning about things. And so this has not been something that's ever been done in Fort Lauderdale. So we said, even if it's, the oyster catchers that we put in that collected the oysters, even if we're not, and look, 86 of them, even if they're all full of oysters, one adult oyster can clean 50 gallons of water a day. Even if that's not necessarily making the largest scale impact, we want to change that narrative. And we want people to be thinking about taking these actions and doing these things, because a lot of people that are moving to here from other areas, they come here, they visit, they fly in, they get off the airplane, they stay down on the beach, and they go, what a beautiful area this is. What a wonderful city this is. We have restaurants, we have beaches, we have waterways. How beautiful is all this? But they haven't lived here long enough to know the challenges that we face as a community, what the water used to look like when it was good compared to what it looks like now, etc. So they're a little, they're just a little uninformed. And so I think, and even people that live on the water that don't know about this stuff, they own homes on the water, they pay a lot of taxes. They're not informed about this type of stuff. So doing these projects really brings to light knowledge for people to understand what is at stake here. And so, between, like I said, those projects, and then, we started a business. Johnny Los came up with this great idea for clean waterways, and a handful of us started this business and again, literally got our hands dirty. I mean, you've seen the product of what, was coming out of these protein skimmers and the nasty stuff that we were pulling out. I mean, if you want to talk about getting your hands dirty,
I remember being there day
how
one.
Nobody lost their hand.
Right there, yeah.
Think about Brian
downtown
Sanders.
Las Olas and downtown Fort Lauderdale. Brian Sanders.
Think about Brian Sanders
infected.
getting a fin prick, in his hand, and him almost losing his finger in his hand.
Yeah. And
these guys with Clean Waterways are putting their hand in this muck, which is just full of bacteria,
sewage, and
it's. I mean, it's coliforms. It's E. coli. It's horrible.
Horrible. So listen. I want people to understand also, all things considered, in the grand phase of what you're trying to do here, you're a very young guy, okay? And that shouldn't faze people one bit. But I think it does put you a little bit closer to understanding people like Lorelei, right? If we look at who she is, and she really does represent hope for the future of conservation, in my mind, 100%, like undoubtedly, right? And that's part of the reason I love her, for a lot of reasons, but that's one of the reasons that really, right? So share with me your thoughts on someone like Lorelei and what that means to maybe your campaign, or what you mean to how that can affect our town.
It's look, the next generation, the younger people that's who's next. Mm-hmm. If they have no interest in getting involved now, who the hell is going to take over and drive this narrative and be the leaders of the future? And so one of the struggles that I found with CCA is there's a good bit of leadership in the middle and, later stages of life with people, but getting young people involved, as much as they want to tell you that they have the passion, it's back to the action versus words conversation that we had. I hear a lot of this, but I don't see a lot of, a lot of hands getting dirty, so to speak. And so that's been a real challenge with, everybody. And look, I understand a lot of people are busy. We got a lot of traffic, so it's hard to, it's hard to get to places, to show up to things, but like, and people have families, and, everybody's got obligations, and like, this is such a hustle and bustle society down here. But, look, at the end of the day, you make time for what you want to do. You make time for You make time for. That's a potential customer. By
it goes $10,000 right there.
Yeah,
that's actually my best friend's mom.
We should probably go sell something to her.
No,
so here we go.
Cheryl will be fine.
Yeah.
Fiscally
just a reminder to everyone: we do this show here in the gallery, and people do try to come in.
I'm looking out for the business here. All right, so
it's all good.
But
Let me get behind the counter.
It brings me a lot of hope that there's people like Lorelei that are willing to actually get their hands dirty and do something. And like, what a cool experience that was. I wish that I knew about that when I was your age, and I wish I had that opportunity.
Well, it's because the inaugural one.
I was
it's the first ever one.
I wish we had done that. I wish I even knew about I wish I even knew about CCA when I was 17 years old.
It's such a great organization.
And that was like the one thing. Amanda Kirpan, she came to us.
This was her brainchild.
Yeah,
right?
she came to a on the management committee.
Did you get to meet her?
Yep, she actually was in charge of all of it.
Yeah. It was her idea.
Made this entire program about a similar program that she went through in high school, and she was like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
She
okay, cool.
literally set the entire thing up with us. She was with us all week in the hotel. I mean, she had like 10 kids for a week. Like, I mean, just get thrown right into that. She has such a passion for this entire program. Mm-hmm. She's one of the regional directors.
It takes passion, right?
She's amazing. Like, she came before the management committee at CCA during our management committee meeting at Mudhole in Orlando, and had this wonderfully organized presentation. She spoke with poise and presented confidently, and it was like you came out of that, and there was like not a single management committee member that said no. I mean, it was so easy to make a decision.
Outstanding. Yeah. Now you had to do a presentation at the end of this, and I will say this: I think one of the things that really brought it home for her was just her standard maritime. What am I going to say here? Just her personable skills and just being, sense of propriety throughout the entire process, right? Really, I think spoke a lot of volume. But you did get to do this presentation.
So, through the process, we actually had to make about a 3-minute presentation about what's a policy change that we could enact to save Florida's ecosystem. I don't remember how the question was exactly worded. I wanted to go from the roots of the problem. I mean, I know we all want to solve from the roots. I talked about outlawing throughout the state the chemical pesticides and fertilizers. It's a common idea, but how it is taken comes from many different ways, and it's not easy. I proposed the use of integrated pest management, which would be like netting produce instead of using pesticides, because when we use these pesticides and fertilizers, they get sprayed off, and then they end up in our waterways, and they end up in the Everglades, and that causes the algae blooms, which then deplete the microorganisms, and that just travels all the way up the food chain, and it's all connected. And if we were to find a way, of course this would be a long process, if we were to find a way to outlaw chemical pesticides and fertilizers, that would help all the way up to our saltwater fishing out here. I mean, you can see it everywhere. I mean, it's happening across the world. In Costa Rica, they have red tides. Of course, it's not in the same algal blooms that we have, but it's an issue that we can start at home and then spread.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you're thinking that way, really. I mean, quite frankly, it just matters because that all spills out into our reefs as well.
Yeah. No, what's interesting about that is in my opinion, the easiest and the smartest. Again, I use the word low-hanging fruit, but it really is. I mean, we're not talking about spending billions of dollars on infrastructure or having to really go crazy with legislation to do that. So, for example, the city of Fort Lauderdale banned the use of pesticides during the rainy season. That was frankly, that was the easiest thing that they probably could have done, and I commend them for that. Miami finally got on board with this and did the same thing. Now, how you enforce it is another thing, right? Yeah. The other thing, other things like blowing your grass and leaves and organic matter into canals. I mean, when that stuff breaks down,
your plastics, your trash,
all of that. But even just things as simple as where you're putting your grass cuttings. I mean, that stuff ends up in the storm drain that goes into the waterways. It breaks down, and it also is a huge nitrogen and phosphorus event too, which is very similar to what the pesticides do, very similar to what coliform bacteria does and sewage and all the nasty stuff that we put in. I mean, aside from plastics, which are a whole nother conversation. So that's a brilliant idea.
A constant argument against this idea is the economic standpoint. A lot of it is, like agriculture controls so much of Florida's ecosystem, which in reality, I mean, if you think about the tourism and like, I mean, how much we spend on fishing in general brings into our economy, it absolutely trumps what agriculture really brings in for us. So we should be prioritizing what Florida's known for. I mean, when you think of Florida, we are the sunshine state. We want to save that. We want to keep our ecosystems going for future generations. I want my kids to grow up how I've grown up. And we have to prioritize that over what we think is a strong economic agriculture.
Right, and I think not only just the Sunshine State, but we really should be considered the water state.
Yeah.
Because this entire state is one big filter full of water. Right, and
there's
if
only
that's
one
not clean, then that affects literally everything.
There's only one Everglades in the entire world,
right.
And this kind of goes this also kind of ties in with the the narrative thing. So if we're talking about this narrative again, you have young people like Lorelei that are leading by example. You have people that are considered very young for politics like me. You've got fishermen, you've got conservationists, environmentalists, activists, advocates. I mean, anybody. This is the narrative. If we can all have this conversation and continue to drive this forward, now we're talking about not having not only one commissioner out of 5 in Fort Lauderdale being water guys or being or gals or being people that really understand and care about the waterways and the environment, but now we're talking about 4 or 5. And then we're talking about this narrative spilling over into Pompano. We're talking about this narrative spilling over into Lauderdale by the Sea and Lighthouse Point. And if you look at a guy who's a commissioner at in Lauderdale by the Sea, is a huge fisherman, waterway guy, really understands. That's Randy Strauss.
Absolutely, 100%.
Randy talks the talk and walks the walk.
He sure does.
And we need more people like that in government leadership. We need more people like Lorelei at that age bracket that are really. Like I said, that are really leading by example.
And I'm so happy you brought up Randy. That's such a good point.
Yeah, and the more of us that there are, the larger this ecosystem that we build that's connected by water, the more that we're going to be able to get done.
Yep.
So this is a great podcast.
We don't talk political issues on this show. We really make it a point not to. Okay, but we openly say we will 100% go to the turf on politics when it comes to clean water.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is our issue. That is the big thing that we want to talk about. We do want to talk about it at every open chance we can.
Yep.
Because that is our mission here. Conservation and clean water. And if it spills over into politics, it spills over into politics. Now, I want to say, and we've said this on the show before, okay? And I want to make it clear, and I want to recorrect this term. Because over the years, the term environmentalist has become a bad word in my mind, right? And because people have tainted that word with their posters in the streets and they're yelling and they're just
that's why I said both, by the way.
Disrespectful approaches and I noticed that's why I'm playing on that.
Yeah,
because I want to correct that term.
Yeah,
like environmentalists and activists and all this stuff. It's become kind of like this aggressive kind of aggravated term.
Yep.
And I want to turn that narrative because no, man, we can be environmentalists and we can be conservative and we can preach conservation at the same time. Right? Because I tell you right now, we both have friends that are both conservative and non-conservative. Okay? So we understand all sides of it, right? But I bet you that when you talk to all of them, everyone is going to be on board for clean water. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Bipartisan all the way, and that's the thing is I'm also running nonpartisan in Fort Lauderdale. So, and really the point behind that, I've always been an independent because I've always been about let's make the right decisions regardless of whether you're liberal or conservative, Republican or Democrat, red or blue. Let's just do what's right for our country, for our state, for our city.
100%.
Our county. So, and that's always been my philosophy, and that's the theme that I'm taking to the city as well.
I always tell people personally, I'm not conservative, I'm not liberal, I'm independent, I'm clean water. So whoever's for clean water,
I like that part
because
the
that's
clean
my
water
mission,
party.
man. That's what I care about the most. I mean, because to me, everything stems from that.
I'm connected by water.
Right, absolutely.
It's a new party.
So, Lorelei, I want you to kind of elaborate a little bit, like not only just this experience, but growing up here in Florida, because you've grown up in a very unique way. Okay, you've grown up with a house on the water here, locally in Pompano, and you've grown up in a fishing family. So kind of shed a little light on what all this means to you.
So I didn't really realize how much my life really depends on my city and how I've grown up until I started looking at colleges and realizing that a 5-hour drive away from home is not going to cut it to come home and fish every weekend.
Right.
I shouldn't be choosing where I go to college by how far away it is from home. But our South Florida community coastally, of course we're all connected, but there is just a different idea, a different connection between all of us. When I went to the CCA scholarship program, it was, we had kids from Orlando, we had DeLand, we had Miami, we had West Palm, but there was nothing that really compared to how committed people are here to growing up into being a Pompano, Fort Lauderdale fisherman, or just beach goer, and they enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, it's in the blood.
The airboaters, don't forget about those people out west. You know what I mean? They are huge out there. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, see, no, the thing is, with me being, I live in the Everglades, right? But I work
actually in them.
I actually do. I'm literally 30 feet from the sawgrass. But I work here 1,000 feet from the beach, right? Literally 1,000 feet from the sand. And so I see both sides of it every day. And for me, connected by water, not just the business, but just the term, the phrase, the idea, the philosophy, whatever you want to call it, to me means everything. It really does. And I'm not using this as a soundboard for my business or anything. I'm just using it as from the heart. Really, and that's why we named it that, is because to me, it really just encompasses everything. No matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we're all connected by water. Right? We always end every episode by saying that.
You can't refute it.
You can't refute it, but it really is everything. Yeah. Without it, we have nothing. Literally. We are not even a planet.
I'm literally planning my future and college plans around the fact that I want to come back to my local area and give my kids what I had to grow up with. Mm-hmm. And if things aren't changed, I'm not going to be able to take my future generations out and be like, hey, let's go catch mahi.
Right.
That's my number one thing, is ensuring that we will be able to share our love for future generations. Mm-hmm. We're a 4-generation of fishing kind of family.
Right.
Let's make it 5.
Wow. Yeah. And 100%. The only thing that concerns me about what you said out of this entire conversation is you mentioned 5 hours away. Mm-hmm. And I know as a Seminole, what's 5 hours
Maybe
away?
About 7.5 hours. 7.5 hours
right?
away. Right. We got to be about 7.5 hours.
We got to
8 hours.
7 hours.
Depends on the traffic.
It depends on the traffic. If it's Thanksgiving, it's 9 hours.
Right.
But, it depends on I-10 and everything. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Are you gonna pay for my gas going up there?
Right now, I will not.
Hey, me personally, I want her to go to FAU so she doesn't have to quit her job.
Yeah, Mom vetoed that one.
How could she veto you, Dennis?
I know.
You are the higher power.
I am the higher power.
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
But really, at the end of the day, we care, right? And there's a lot of love in this room for where we're at and what we want to preserve. And quite frankly, because it's about conservation, preservation, and moving forward, right? And so I want to thank you guys for having that conversation with me. I want to bring up here for Mike that there is an event coming up. We want to talk about it here.
Sure. We have a fundraiser and I would say a campaign kickoff at the New River Art Gallery on Las Olas. Mm-hmm. The Burgess family is kind enough to host us there. We start at 5:30 p.m. This is Tuesday,
June 28th.
The 28th. Right? So that's next Tuesday. Start at 5:30. We end at 7:30.
Okay.
And
the New River Fine Art Gallery at 822 East Las Olas Boulevard.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. Contributions max allowable is $1,000 per person or entity.
Okay.
That's important.
That is important.
Campaign law.
Listen, I'm going to say that for you because I know it's weird asking for money without sounding like this
I do it for a living, but this is the first time I've ever done it for a campaign.
Yeah, but you listen. I know you don't want to sound like too politician about it, because that's not really who you are. You're doing this for the right reasons, and I want to make that clear to anyone who's listening to this. And this is why I want to have you on the show, because I'm like, listen, we got to get people in the political game that aren't in it for the political game, right? And that's really the whole point of this episode, is bringing you on. Like, we're not in it for a game. This is not a game, people, right? This is real stuff that matters to people in real life. And we're trying to make a difference, right? And so anybody out there, listen to me. I'm bringing the guy on the show that's going to make the difference. It's true, Mike, right? Because you're in it for the right reasons. I know who you are, right? I wouldn't put my neck out on the line or my reputation on the line and say, this is the guy, if I didn't really believe it. And it's true, okay? I wouldn't put my reputation, my neck out of line, or make this my personal assistant. This wasn't the girl to take the torch for the next generation. It's the truth, okay? She just proved it.
Oh, absolutely.
She put herself in front of the CCA, CCA
I'm
Florida.
voting for a raise. I'm sorry.
Okay.
401k, pension,
whatever.
Look at her.
Thanks, Mike.
You're
Yes.
welcome. Well,
Right?
bait's more expensive now if you don't catch it.
Do you see what car I drive, Dennis?
Yeah.
We didn't upgrade.
All right.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm just taking a step ahead here.
That's right. It's all well deserved.
We gotta support our youth. So.
100%. But okay, so I just want to make it clear that is the reason for the season here, the summer season. All right. So, Mike Lambrechts, tell people where they can find you and follow your campaign.
MikeLambrechts.com.
Mm-hmm.
Also on Facebook is Mike Lambrechts for City of Fort Lauderdale District 4 Commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get all the information you need over there. Anybody wants to reach out to me, ask any questions, Mike at MikeLambrechts.com. The last name will spell for you because, well, it'll be on the screen probably, maybe. Well, either way, for the listeners, though.
Yeah, for the listeners.
LAMBRECHTS.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And look forward to hearing from people. Look forward to running. Looking forward to furthering our narrative, furthering people's knowledge of the waterways, as well as looking to represent this city in the city's best interest, doing my homework, and making sure that, like I said, what we're doing and the decisions we're making are the ones that are the right ones for the city. And to me, and a lot of other people, I think it's hard to beat a guy that's born and raised here that loves the city as much as I have, had the opportunity to come back here from college, use these waterways and have been pretty much up and down every single waterway in Fort Lauderdale. So it's hard to find people that care about the city as much as I do.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I appreciate everybody's support. I've had a ton of support so far and really looking forward to the future.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you are, because you're the guy. I'm looking forward to the future, too.
Thank you.
Definitely. 100%. You're going to see these signs around town that they say, vote Mike.
You'll see them.
Right? Right? You'll see them all over town. And Lorelei, they can find you at Lorelei Bennett on Instagram.
Good luck spelling that, guys.
LORELEI.
There you
Bennett,
go.
BENNETT. Right, on Instagram.
Yep.
Follow her and see all the great things that she's up to. She likes to post a lot of pictures of her holding a lot of big
She
fish,
catches some. She catches some awesome fish. I actually DM'd her and I was like, "How'd you catch that 85-pound tuna?" I actually
95.
Well, I actually, unfortunately, I underestimated it and I felt bad. And then when she really really stuck it to me when she said the real weight of this thing, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed now. I don't know what the heck I'm looking at."
Yeah. So
but,
I've never caught her bending her back, holding up these big wahoo.
I've never caught a fish like that in the 20 years I've been fishing. So she's already way ahead of me, and she deserves it. So
funny story, real quick before we close this out. All right, so she comes back. She comes back from the CCA thing, and she's like, "Yeah, they're all like inshore kids. They're all like inshore kids, right? Tell me like this, like this." So she's like, "So I was kind of keeping quiet the whole time, right? And then so there were like 2 or 3 days go by, and then someone asks me like, what kind of boat do you have?" And she's like, "Oh, 37 Freeman." Right? And then she busts out her Instagram. She's like, and they're like, "Oh."
Yeah, they got a little scared.
Then she was being humble in the beginning. They're like, "Oh," they see her like big big eye tunas and the big wahoo and the big mahi and the kings and everything like that. So
yeah, well,
I think that at that point she cemented her legacy within that group as top dog angler.
I think I scared the boys a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that's all right. So. That's all right.
All right. Listen, if you're in the market for a new truck or vehicle, stop by our good friends over there at Joey Cardi Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and they will hook you up with a good deal. Only if you say that the Connected by Water podcast sent you. Right? Go over there, talk to Dean. He knows who I am. And if you say that, he will know who you are. And I cannot make any promises, but he might give you a better deal than most people might get if you say that you're with Connected by Water. So, if it's the weekend, so we're recording on a Friday, so if you want to just relax for the weekend, why don't you go ahead and grab yourself a bottle of Papa's Pilar rum and, just relax for the weekend. And we're proud to be part of that Papa's Pilar family. And follow Mike here on Instagram and go to his website, contribute to the campaign, and make sure that you follow Starbright at starbright_.com. We need your nominations for do-gooders, okay? So please give us your nominations for do-gooders, all right? And we will keep announcing congratulations to Alex Gorichki for being our first ever winner of our Starbright program. Okay. All right.
Cool.
Lorelei, Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. So, all right, your ego. It's not your ego. Always do your best at the end of the day, just like God do the rest. And do not ever forget, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we're all connected by water. Thank you.